Alright, so hello everyone.
Oh.
Hello. Hello there. So welcome to this small retrospective and presentation about my animation. Just a quick question, who here at least heard about me here or? Oh, very nice. which at the same time is very good that it's only, yeah, thanks. At the same time, it's at the same time,
wearing a mask, I cannot tell.
Yeah.
You know who's hosting the panel, right?
No.
Yeah. Which at the same time is very good, that there's only half of people not knowing, because I did make the small compilation of some stuff I did in the past with the help of my friend, Anime's friend. Okay, and just as a heads up, this is really probably one of the very first time I do some kind of a presentation like this. So my apologies if I stutter or keep repeating some words there and there. Though at the same time, unlike school projects where it's oh, we are tasked to choose some kind of a theme for a presentation that we do not care, do not like, yada yada yada. So we stutter every time. This is a project I'm quite passionate. So keep it natural, should be fine, and let's go in for the road. What does the expression, whatever. Alright, hopefully everything works fine. Yeah, it's very difficult to say with Windows sometimes. Right. This was a small compilation of all the stuff I did in animation specifically. So it's really you have the rig and you move it, purely that for the most part. While also doing the 2D stuff on top of it. So basically I was thinking about just going through a small overview, how I even managed how I even started up, how I been working on the stuff through 13 years, pretty much 13 or 14, roughly. It was almost a decade and a half, so quite some lifetime, some time to work on it. So essentially, how did I even started up doing this in relation to even just how did I even wanted to do animation? How did I even discover specific Gary's mode? And how is it even tied to MLP? Because there was a lot of stuff with MLP initially. So it's pretty much during my youngest year, during high school era, roughly 2013, 14, I was basically I really hated school, despite not being like the worst in the class, but it was like so boring. What was the point? It was so stressful having like looking for like a good grades and there. So I'm like, yeah, fuck, screw it. I wanted to like blow up some steam, so to speak. And during the same time, I was roughly growing around like all the Gary's mod animations that my friend over here like shows how it works. Which is pretty much with the universe of TF2, which was also like tied with MLP. More specifically, it wasn't as much the official canon material, but more like the parodies. I'll be butchering some names because I'm always very terrible with it. I usually remember just like the visuals, but like a DJ Demon, there was the Yukaidu something else. The guy who did the Flash animations with MLP taking with Portals and the Sims parody in 2D, which also at that time, it was basically also the time where pretty much MLP and Gmod was often mixed together. Probably with the most famous creator, which was like an inverted shadow. But there were like multiple others. There was like a Glide Spontaneous, Venom 950. There was there's really a lot. And to the point where even Valve at that time, they were like, there was this Halloween event. I don't remember which year it was exactly, but they basically were like, let's do a recording session with all of our official actors and basically record new voice lines just related to a unicorn hat. So you can just imagine the reaction of the MLP fans. Oh my god, it's officially in TF2. So it was essentially mostly doing that, having pretty much an entire carefree approach. Like for me, it was basically, I was bored from school, I had some kind of like funny ideas, usually inspired by someone else or a meme on the internet, whatever, and I was basically like, yeah, let's do that, let's try something. With also the kind of funny approach where in a lot of situations, I would see something very creative done by someone on the internet. Probably the best example would be like, Kitty 0705. I'm always butchering the numbers, which is a sad thing. Rest in peace, by the way. But he had one of in Team Fabulous too, like this small section, which was entirely in Gary's mode, but then suddenly it had this 2D character done in Flash that was composited on top of it, as if he was part of the world. But every single time someone will try something like this, he will say, oh no, my god, it's too complicated, so I'm gonna just like abandon what made through and not do it again because it's very difficult. I would rather have a 3D model, it's gonna be simpler, I'm lazy, yada yada yada. And I'll be like, I'll just make it my brand, literally, even if it's like, doesn't make things easier. Though it's really, with the carefree approach, it was basically just like, get stuff done as fast as possible and not necessarily care about like the high quality of animation. Which it works fine, especially in improv, where there is you have some nice creative ideas and you can do them and basically just goof around. Stumble across by accident, which might be very funny, and yeah, sure, why not? Let's keep it. Like for example, just loading like here some kind of like a random model you can find on the workshop, just like goofing around, posing it, moving the arms around, like shrinking head, because why not? It's a possibility in Gary's mod, and it's very easy to do, especially with the physics. But it's not necessarily very easy to like do very elaborate animations like Artman or Laika would do back in the day. So it was like, I don't care, just do it. Yeah, you know them. So whatever, just do them as you please, a carefree approach with a lot of like cheap and free tools. So like, of course, Gary's mod, which during constant sales, it's only at like, what, $1, $2? So like pretty much nothing. And then you add on top of it, for the 3D part, it will be, it was still a Flash when it was called the Macromedia 8 or 3, yeah, Macromedia, yeah. Basically the old Flash crack. and essentially just like editing everything in like a small crack of Sony Vegas. So very bottom of the road like stuff, like very simple stuff that was very easily available back in the day. Nowadays, I guess the equivalent would be, instead of Sony Vegas, it would be, for example, DaVinci Resolve, which is like a free. And for the 2D part, yeah, I guess you could maybe find a crack of Flash. You can maybe, for the easily available stuff, oh, you have Blender, of course. You can do it eventually in Krita or maybe just like in a cracked version of Photoshop. They have the ability to do animation, which is, well, less than optimal, except for Flash, which was surprisingly good. I mean, there's a reason it was used on the actual Canon MLP show for pretty much the entirety of the run, except for 1 or 2 feature fields, which I still, the one with Sunset Shimmer, I think she was called, the one with the purple, dark purple, who had to hold broken, which was done in Tumble Harmony. So pretty much just like a carefree, just like a, yeah, I just want to have fun during high school, just to blow off some steam. But then suddenly I came into the important decision when I pretty much finished high school, got my diploma. What do I want to do later on? Because for the most part, I always assumed and thought, despite me hating school, I still didn't have like such bad grades. I mean, I was actually pretty good at school even, but never really cared that much about it. I was just wanted like be done with it, have high grades, so that I'm not like told by my parents, oh, you should work more, etc. Just like have good grades, cool, you can have fun, and yeah, have fun was basically playing video games and doing animation stuff on Gary's mod with Flash and Flash. But then basically came the bachelor era when I had to make a decision what I'm gonna still study later on at the university. So for the longest point, I never really thought I would be doing animation as a career, so I thought I would be ending up as a, I don't know, scientist or computer engineer, like basically the classic stuff that may eventually earn you a lot of money, and me being good at it, like semi-good at it, and sure, why not, should be fine. Especially with good grades on math, so that helps with the entry fee. But I was like, at some point, I still don't remember the context. I've been doing animations on my free time so much, with already on the YouTube channel having like a small following. I really don't remember how many. It's possible during the video it was the 10,000 sub special, so which seems like a nice chunk. Not sure if it's like a lot or not, especially back in the day, because nowadays it's like way too inflated, so like way more of it. So I had to think about curriculum, and initially it was thinking about doing computer engineering. Then I was like, oh, I was doing animation, so might be something related to animation. So we basically, like with my parents, scrambled around to like find a school that might be mixing both. And we stumbled across small-ish, I mean, actually it was a pretty big school for the country. It's called the Polish-Japanese Academy of IT, PAJOT in Polish, called also, in which basically it was the kind of school that has a lot of different curriculums in like IT. It has like an art medium, like new media art. So I was like, I could try eventually the tech, the IT curriculum, because like, oh, there's some art next by, but focus on the computer engineering, because that might be the safest, but especially with the good grades in math, which would allow me to immediately bypass the entrance exam that was required. But then for some reason I was like, you know what, no, let's try rather the new media art, which is more art focused. Which problem was, I was goofing around with Gary's mod with very cartoony stuff, but the requirements for the new media art entrance, it was essentially a portfolio of 30 drawings of like anatomically correct either people and still nature, yeah, both of them. So in a hyper-realistic manner, which I never really did in my entire life, so to speak, up until this point. So basically, I had to like spend the 2 weeks like burinating, like pretty much crunching, like drawing stuff very fast, very high realistic. Thankfully, with the support of my mother, who did some like art schools in the past, and she was like, yeah, no, maybe fix that does seems out of proportions, the perspective seems wrong, the hand is too big, yada, 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 yeah, like pretty much all the constructive criticisms that you can expect of, and especially to the, with the approach that this school had like 3 or 4 different times you can try to pass the exam, like 3 or 4 attempts, something like that. And we always had the approach, the first one with no experience in drawing, I'm gonna fail. So when I fail this one, it will be an experience to see what they may be asking for, then I'm gonna have some kind of like drawing classes to like learn actually how to draw anatomically correct things. But to our biggest surprise, the first exam, surprisingly enough, I passed. And despite the fact, and I still remember, I had not enough still frames, still drawings and paintings, but I did get some bonus points, which made me pass because of Gary's mode. Like I already showed some of the animations I did back then, and they were quite surprised, surprisingly. Yeah, I passed, which means, oh cool, I don't necessarily need to do the drawing lessons, and yet, no, screw it, I'll do them anyway, because it's going to be additional knowledge to be on point. Which, to this point, I really do not regret, because we went really, really in depth when it comes to like 2-point and 3-point perspectives and architecture. So like really nailed down the perspectives as much as possible. Which, it was also very fun, and I started to like incorporate those like lessons in my Garry's Mod work. Especially for ideas with my like persona in 2D, like falling down and throwing it around, which actually I can show because it's still on there. Where is it? Yeah, it's a solution of. Yeah, this one, like pretty much with the pony, like maybe we got the sound. Here we go. Yeah, this one, just like throwing around, like this. Where I basically, you have to imagine, the initial rough for this animation, like I drew a shit, sorry for the bad language, a crap ton of like construction lines to basically tell myself, are the perspectives right, are the like proportions right, etc., and just like goof around and play around it. But at the very least, when I finally got into this school, this is the moment I started to have like a very broad, very large art basics and like theory, basics and theory, which with pretty much classes stemming from a little bit from everything from like traditional painting, traditional drawing, to video game programming with typography, art history, philosophy, copyright laws also for a very short time, and other stuff which are like very broad, and some classes for like learning some software, mainly from the Adobe suite, which I mean it was okay back in the day. Like nowadays it's a different story, but whatever. But like pretty much incorporating all those broad theories and mixing them a little bit with my animations in Garry's Mod and the 2D, which was very good to have a very broad knowledge and have choice, like have open doors, like maybe choosing stuff later on, but it was never really going into depth. Like I'll let you imagine, like we had the After Effects lessons for compositing, and it essentially boils down to just do whatever you want with the software, I don't care. Whatever, there's a function that does this, there's a function that does that, yada yada yada, but nothing about like a color theory, nothing about like pacing, etc. Very broad stuff that by itself wouldn't necessarily get you anywhere much, aside maybe for like knowing how to use the software. And then it would be basically up to you to like, this is the moment you need to kind of like find something interesting to like do with the actual software, the actual tool, and not rely on it 100%. But it was still very nice to like have this very broad knowledge overall. And this is also the first, and it was also at this moment where I started learning Maya for the first time, which is always the one software which like Blender actually, which is like very intimidating because unlike Flash or Gary's Mod, well, Gary's Mod not really, but like Flash and SFM actually, it's not an animation software, it's a 3D software overall. You have modeling, rigging, texturing, UV mapping, even Blender has like the compositing node baked in it, so like with each pattern being like completely separate jobs to which people like specialize in. So very broad knowledge to like have the basics and do something with it. So it was basically me doing that and incorporating stuff in my personal project, especially with the funny stuff, especially Pyro Paint, which it's kind of a recreation of my experience at that art school, which was essentially like, yeah, Call of Fury, some like art stuff, like a pyro painting for like 8 hours straight, which is, yeah, actually the experience we had. We were painting for that long. Like still life and portraits and etc. And landscapes also, very important. With also like fancy words like synesthesia being thrown around randomly. So like, oh, that's a funny word. Let's voice mix heavy doing that, saying that, for no reason other than like having fun. So it was basically the entire like bachelor era. And then suddenly, for the masters, during the bachelor, I was like. One of the other things I grew up when it comes to like my younger years, aside from like NLP stuff and Garage Mod stuff, it was also me being fascinated by specifically the short films from Gobelin, l'École de l'Image in Paris, which unlike Payot, which is like a okay-ish famous school in the country, next to it, Gobelin, it's pretty much, you have to think of it as colored in Europe, with some of the, yeah, it's basically probably the most prestigious animation school in, like, not only in France, but also like Europe, with some of the students from here, like 2 of them specifically, ending up as being movie directors for DreamWorks, like Kung Fu Panda and Bad Guys. They all come from Gobelin, so an entirely different level. But I was still like, all right, let's try like sending up, wait, how do we say a candidature? Like send application, yeah. Just send like an application to this fancy school with probably no expectations that I'm gonna be chosen by it. Like, I don't know, just like randomly throwing around. Give it a shot, basically, because otherwise you never really know. The only thing that it kind of cost, there was some kind of like an application fee for it, but I don't remember it being like super expensive or something like that. So like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's try it out. You never really know. With basically, especially since it was, I was applying for the, there was the French course and the international course. I was applying for the international one because despite me actually speaking French, so I could have very well applied for the French one. But the difference is that for masters, you have both sections, but for bachelor, you only had the French one, which means all the French guys from bachelor would go directly to masters, which means French course, only 2 spots left per year. The international one, maybe a dozen. So like more chances, and also, yeah, sure, why not? I already know French, so I could very well just like practice English in this case. So just like sending the application, like doing, there was no exam in this case for masters, but there was application letter, like creating a portfolio from stuff what you did. So I pretty much still did it as usual with the Garry's Mod stuff, but also some of the Bachelor of Arts stuff I did back then. And again, that must be some kind of like, I would say curse, but normally it's it should be a struck clock, applied, like application accepted for Gobelin in France. So like, we're like, oh my God, we need to find an apartment in Paris. Without a garant, by the way. So like, it's you can basically imagine it's almost like finding an apartment in Amsterdam at this level. So yeah, pretty much trying to cobble up something, finding very quickly all it out because like I've already applied. Whoa! But yeah, very excited. But and finally and basically when I got to Gobelin, it was like for the first time in my life, because so far in high school and the bachelor, I was usually one of the better in class. So like, yeah, sure, I'm good. I can help others. And there are still some very talented people too. Like so, but I was usually the one trying to like experiment with more stuff, but never making my own life easier. Like for the final film, most people, despite us having like a year and a half to prepare the final film, most of them basically just like cobbled the whole thing in 3 weeks in After Effects. But you can basically imagine it's like the puppet slop for the most time that drags on for like 10 minutes. So you can imagine the jury falling asleep, and despite that, they were still receiving like, oh, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, so good grades, and me suddenly, me being like, no, I'm gonna make the short film like maximum a minute and a half or 2. So very short, but trust me, bro, I'm gonna try to do my absolute best, like mixing 3D stuff with Maya, mixing 2D stuff on top of it. Like it was a visual overstimulus that you can almost consider as a tech demo more than an actual final film project, artistic project. I mean, it was still nice, but like, yeah, it was overwrought with so many mistakes. Then suddenly the masters I got there, I came in and like, oh my god, I'm such a terrible student. Like everyone here, they could basically do sakugas in Japan for like Gainax or MAP or hell, like even with some of the students over there, I kid you not, like basically lunch break, one of the students was working on a computer. I kind of have a look at it, what he's doing. It was literally a cleanup for Klaus on Netflix. So like, Jesus Christ, yeah. I need to like step up my game in this case. The only thing I could at least rely on, which was a good thing to have in Bachelor, because unlike the Bachelor, where basically I had a little bit of everything when it was like art theory, now Gobelin is hyper specialized in animation, specifically 2D. Like the Bachelor at Gobelin, they only do 2D, 2D, 2D. Like basically they just draw, and that's it. But they have like no lessons about other stuff, like color theory, Maya specifically, which means I come at Gobelin, I can at the very least, for the 3D exercises, be like, okay, I'm not too bad, and I see that everyone else sucks in Maya, so I can, yeah, finally something I'm good at. But this is still the fact that still a lot of things to learn from all of those guys who are like way more talented than me in some areas. So I could learn, for example, especially from some of my friends from Gobelin. He taught me how to specifically animate fire, and which I still use his technique to this day. We also had access to like a more specialized software and with plugins. So Maya with this time Animbot and Twin Machine. Twin Machine for Blender users, it's the breakdowner, so like I put in betweens. And instead of using Flash and Photoshop for animation, this time we had TV Paint, which is one of the industry standards for like a 2D animation, maybe in France, like La Cachette and stuff like that. It's probably my favorite animation software for 2D animation. Sure, Toon Boom and Clip Studio might do some things better, but honestly, TV Paint, woo, it rules. And I'm pretty much using it still, especially since we got like a discount for the license, and I'm still using it to this day for my recent project. And also one big difference with Gobelin, unlike Payot, is that Payot, basically most of the teachers over there, they're basically like traditional teachers, so basically they're always teachers, always teach theory, but don't have a lot of like experience. While at Gobelin is the opposite, basically all the teachers are only here for like a couple of weeks, because they, in the meantime, they're actively working in the industry for big studios. So they have actual practical knowledge for animation. So it was really the moment where like the knowledge skyrocketed, I think, and from the stuff I could manage to learn from this place, it was really incredible. And of course, as usual, I've been using it in the garage mode and my funny stuff. With the only major difference, it's because this time I was basically, before I was with my parents at home, so like, they prepare dinner, they do the laundry, all the free time in the world, etc. So I can just like spend all this time like playing games and like doing animation. But now suddenly I'm completely alone in Paris, so it's like, adult stuff, adult responsibilities, like doing laundry, doing administrative stuff, like so completely alone. So like basically much less time doing personal stuff, which we still do occasionally. But mainly after Goblin, because unlike Payout, which, I still have time to do my personal stuff on the sideline. Now, this one we had to like lock in to finish our final film. Only 8 months, 6 people team, and basically of the quality you would expect for like probably the biggest animation school in Europe. So like, there's. Yeah, you have to imagine during the last day we had to like work till like 4 a.m. To like meet the deadlines. So it's probably also the time when I noticed. I almost did an overdose on coffee at this point. So like, never drinking coffee later on, only tea. But it was also like an opportunity because they were active in the industry. It was an opportunity to like create contacts for the future to get hired. Like even especially with internships, which there were a couple of those. I took part into one, which basically will lead me to the next point. Which after finishing the masters, the same studio I did the internship immediately hired me for working on the TV series. As a 3D animator mainly, but also doing some 2D stuff there and there. So this is the moment. We had mainly theory with a little bit of practicality. This is the moment, the junior era. So I'm finally starting to work in an actual animation studio. This is the moment where, this is learning practical stuff. Like all the theory, all the fluff you had with like fancy tools, fancy theory. No, this is, you know what, it doesn't matter. You should only do this. Like be efficient, especially on TV series where, do you think 6 seconds of animation per day is a lot of work? Is it?
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, like for TV series, in a junior year, it's a lot, but later on down the line, I noticed with a different experience, I can do 20 in a day, so it doesn't really matter. But it was still very fast-paced for like essentially me now having no experience in the professional field. I mean, a little bit aside from the because there was the internship, of course. But like essentially, doing the some small TV series there and there, basically. Trying stuff, also like getting some ideas from the TV series and using them in my garage mode stuff. Specifically, there was this TV series I worked on. You have to imagine, basically the kind of like a small France Télévisions stuff for children that they show at like 8 or 9 a.m. Basically very simple stuff. Some ideas I had, because they were like low expectations for the TV series, so like we could take more risks. I was like, whatever, I'll try something like stretching a finger of a character to recreate a smear. And I had so much fun with it. And also the director and the supervisor were like, okay, that looks actually pretty creative, pretty fun. So I basically just like, and by the way, the supervisor being like one of the older Disney veterans from the 60s. So like, already, I just noticing that during my junior year, oh my god, it's a legend. Oh, gushing around. But basically, just like trying this stuff with the finger, and it literally gave me the idea for a demo man stretching his fingers in demo. No, it was not the demo tricks a lot. It was. I'm such a terrible with names. It was before Sniper. Demo Tell Sergeant. Voila, this one. Where basically all the stretching fingers, it came from a TV series I tried something on. So it was basically continuing like doing TV series, essentially sometimes with an intermission of like working on a pilot for a TV series to like test my skills and see if I'm up to the game. Basically just like continuing that for like roughly 1 or 2 years. Don't mind the days because in reality it's like this a couple of months circling around. So I would say it's rather like 2 years instead of one. Now suddenly, the same studio, which wasn't really a big studio, they mainly did like advertisement, etc. Now they suddenly start, they receiving contracts from like big players in the industry to like help them out in some feature film projects. Like basically we help in like 15 minutes or 30 minutes on some feature film. So one of those feature films ended up being Orion and the Dark from DreamWorks. Which was, oh my god, Jesus Christ, it was already like a pretty like a huge. With me working on the TV series, the supervisor that was hired specifically for the for the feature film was like, okay, Grace seems to do some kind of interesting work, so let's put him to the test and assign him as a intermediate animator on one of the feature films. And this is really the moment when I could rely on like an efficient workflow. I already figured some stuff to like be fast and like be creative in the TV series with the low expectation. This time around, it's really the very high expectation. So, for example, you cannot get away, for example, with just like just posing posing a character in one pose and then like a one key pose, second key pose, and just like rushing the in-betweens and just like maybe delaying in the timeline like the head, for example, because they're quite big, in a very automatic and efficient manner. No, I basically had to like rethink my entire workflow on the feature film, because this time nothing was random. Like, all the micro twitches on the finger, it meant something in the character, like something, it was tied to body language. To the point where the same supervisor recommended us a book at some point by Joe Navarro, who was an ex-CIA agent specialized in criminal interrogation, just to talking about body language, like what was the meaning of a character like sitting with the open chest like this, being super relaxed, the cross legs being like a pretty stressed, pretty like nervous, like shaking hands, like readjusting, like even readjusting to a point, like the glasses, the hat, the mask, because you feel very nervous in front of an audience. Like very elaborate stuff like that, and with the expected quality of like a DreamWorks feature film. With the quotas at the time, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was, this time we had more time for animation. It was like 1 second roughly per day of animation, if I remember correctly, or maybe 4 per week, which sounds like a lot of time, until you realize Disney and DreamWorks typically have twice as much time because of their bigger budgets, and our budgets were in the 30 millions roughly, which compared to the 30 million, compared to the 300 millions, no, half of it, like 150 millions in like a typical Disney feature film. Yeah, not a lot of time to output a lot of quality. And this is on top of the fact that on my workflow from TV series straight up doesn't work. So I need to rethink everything. Thankfully, the supervisor I had over there was probably, I would consider, one of the absolute best teachers you can ask for animation, because he would go really in depth in every facet of how to make a blocking, how to spline, how to use the certain shortcuts in Maya, how to approach body language, how to approach psychology, physics. Like it was really an incredible. And this guy was a legend. Also, he worked on like some CFX for like Avatar from James Cameron, for example, and Harry Potter. And also like on top of that, DreamWorks was like really a huge legend and an amazing teacher, and also a great friend. Actually, I would even say like a very nice guy. So I would basically just like try to understand his workflow and basically try to apply it as much as possible. Of course, the first shots were like they still ended up being in the final project, but they were like, yeah, made a lot of mistakes there and there, could have been more efficient with that. but then slowly getting tested with more ambitious shots, like actual money shots that you really cannot screw up because that will cost a lot. And one or two of those shots, he was so impressed with them that he immediately promoted me to senior animator on Orion. With the small pay raise actually, which counts for something. But it also meant, when I switched to Orion, that means unlike the TV series, which is like a very low responsibility, you're just like throwing something for children and that's it. No, now you basically, the type of job of a senior animator is essentially, whenever you have juniors and interns working on a feature film with you, every single time they cannot keep up with the very high demands of the director and the quotas, it was basically up to me to like fix their stuff. So I was the guy to call to fix stuff, and yeah, I definitely should not screw around and be as efficient as possible, which is definitely a very difficult project. I mean, like 1 or 2 seconds per week. Like the rigs were like not necessarily the greatest because of the lower budget and the very demanding directors, and low morale pretty low in some areas, but we still persevered, and it was such a fulfilling experience for all of us that basically we learned like so many things from it, which I still continued to apply in Gary's mode later on. Like literally after that, it was Sniper Moonshine, where I essentially, with those pretty much ragdolls like that in Gary's mode, which is like a super limited software, which is not even an animation software, now I'm like, okay, let's try to achieve DreamWorks quality with those animations, which surprisingly enough, with especially, who knows Gary's mode, like how it works? Anyone? Oh yeah, thanks. But you can essentially see how it works. You control it on a third-person shooter with controls like this, moving around like very unpractical and like very unstable ragdolls. But thankfully, with some add-ons, like for example, stop-motion helper that got built during this time, which essentially is literally Maya's timeline, which allows you like to put keyframes. And it was essentially applying all the philosophies I learned from the DreamWorks supervisor and try to apply in Gary's mode, which, surprisingly enough, kind of works. I mean, as a spline one, so to speak, but because you don't have the graph editor, and before you tell me, any animators, 3D animators here? No. Thank you. Yeah, but before like any animator like tells me, oh my god, I hate the graph editor. Bro, the graph editor, this is literally the kind of stuff which will turn, doing shape the model node, like the characteristics of model, for example. Like doing the same node in 2D will take you probably, for the same duration, like let's say 5 seconds of animation, will take you maybe 1 week. To do in 2D, because you need to go back to rough. So redraw every single keyframe, every in-between in rough, then do tie down, then do clean up. Well, the same node on 3D with the graph editor, just one curve in the graph and you already fixed the issue. A couple of hours instead of like a 1 week. So the graph is used right for 3D animation. Trust me. Just try it out for yourself, and you can see, yeah, it definitely works. So it was essentially like a high responsibility, high new like area to discover. And especially after that, yeah, already had a pretty big reputation because like being able to like get shit done on some prods. So afterwards, it was pretty much just like, oh, I've been contacted for like this TV series pilot, so like I'll go for this pilot. I'm contacted for this like advertisement, so I go for this advertisement. I go for this trailer. I give for this yada yada yada. And even though for the most part it's in France, I still got some opportunities abroad. Like case in point, just before going to PonyCon here, I was actually meeting with my friends from the studio I worked on in Amsterdam last year. So you start to really get some opportunities abroad. while also struggling to like find holidays, find some breaks, and yeah, you see the reason why I don't post as often on YouTube. Like it's basically work. I'm too busy with it. But despite that, it's at least the work that allows me to continue learning stuff, being more efficient, discovering like new scripts there and there, like new philosophies, new approaches, new types of shots, new like anatomical secrets, psychological secrets, like so many more things that I don't really see tutorials on YouTube, like giving this kind of like more advanced advice, like how to bring what you learn to like beginner tutorials from like El Toro, from like Dr. Face, from what's this called, That's Bullshit, or even other like step-by-step tutorial, how to work, yada yada yada, how to use the Flash, how to use yada yada. No, this is really like the next level, like how to actually get hired in like big industries. So basically just like continuing to like grow, and while always keeping this approach of like be humble, because you never really know what you're gonna learn next time. You might be surprised. And yeah, like some tips and tricks. I know for this one, it's been something I've been taking for a very, very long time. I need to do some kind of like a tutorial on my channel, because so far I've been very hesitant to do a beginner tutorial, because especially because of that. Like it's there's so many tutorials being available so far, with which I actually grew up with, and with my friend too. So like Dr. Pace, El Toro, etc., which you can basically just get the basics, like oh, you see the guy like puts the keyframe, oh, he starts to like implement ease-ins, ins-outs, and overshoots, which is basically the 12 principles of animation. But even then, you have beginner tutorials like talking about the 12 principles, which is like, oh, this is what you need to do to make a good animation. So like you need to have a good composition, and you need to have overshoots, and you need to have like ease-in, ease-outs, which is probably something I realized in my career, professional one. You should not think of the 12 principles as a checkbox that you basically just like fill. Ah, is it here? Ah, check. Ah, check. No, not checkboxes. It should be sliders instead that are dependent on the art style you are looking for. Because of course the happy realism might have like less overshoots than cartoon, for example. But it will still have overshoots, just like this, for example, like a not a super exaggerated one, like you would just do for the sake of doing it, which is like a super unnatural, but just like still small overshoots from the muscles tension, which are essentially springs holding your bones together, with the tension depending on the stress, which is a psychological factor, which can already tell something about the body language. So 12 principles, I would say they need to be sliders, which depends on the art style you're looking for, and the emotion. Like a more relaxed character would be like, I'll say it first, je me la pète, yada yada yada, I'm so chill, I'm so cool, bro, I'm like very loose, so like of course you have very exaggerated arcs, very relaxed muscles, like some overshoots which are like very smooth, and this translates in the graph editor as like basically yeah, very smooth curves, yada yada yada, and then like so the stress, like a super like a tense, super like a huge tension in all the muscles, like a contracted like this, so very shaky, so very like a jittery like a curves in the graph editor. And also, probably the biggest realization I had at some time, and really should be explained more, because this is really annoying that not a lot of people like explain this properly. Do you even know where the 12 principles came from? Anyone? Yeah?
It was like the old men of Disney or something.
Exactly, but how did they figure it out in the first place?
They watched things move in real life.
Exactly. They studied nature. They had an entire studio filled with actors and dancers, like pretty much dancing, moving, acting, like being alive, like basically studying anatomy, mechanism, etc. And they noticed basically, oh, we tend to notice quite a bit of like arcs, we tend to notice quite a bit of like overshoots, ease in, ease out, framing from cinema. They start to notice because they were studying nature, like you are asked at school, don't teach, this is the basic kind of the stigma a lot of people have in the art community, where they say, don't trace other arts to learn stuff. Learn from the source, the nature, which, to be fair, you can still try to trace some stuff just to get the hang of it. I mean, hell, I was also probably guilty of it at some point, I don't remember which one. But at least fundamentally understand why the artist by itself drew the things in the first place. So study nature, which they've been doing pretty much since the prehistoric age, and even the Renaissance with Rembrandt and Da Vinci, etc. They were also studying nature and making notes and crafting theory based on nature itself. So this is basically the second bullet point I would also get in. Whenever you try to do some animation, probably one of the biggest advices I would give when it comes trying to step up a notch in your quality. Before you start, you can still do an animatic, you can do for example, I don't know, a storyboard, thumbnails, so just have a small scribble, etc. But at the very least, before you even touch the software, regardless if it's Gary's mod, the whatever the software is called in Roblox to allow you to animate, SFM, Maya, Blender, 2D, TV Paint, the Flash, your drawings, your stop-motion puppets, IRL ones, whatever, regardless, anyone, record yourself doing the acting. You need an acting reference, because, and not just any acting reference, because this is something I noticed also a lot of YouTube, where people post unfortunately, there's no big box, but that's okay. I can use the chat. Not sure if do you see me? Do you see me roughly like this? Efficiency? Okay, yeah. Essentially, I will see a lot of people on YouTube when they try to. I'm gonna record an acting reference, trying to lift a big box, heavy box. I just lift it like this. It's a very light one. So essentially, they'll be I'm a strong man, I'm gonna try to lift this big box of rocks, which is an empty box by the way. They're gonna lift up, they're gonna try, they're gonna fake the thing of being heavy, heavy, going backward, going forward, backward again, I'm really just overreacting. Yeah, I mean, the acting would be fake, of course. That would be. You may as well just do it by hand because it's so cliche, essentially. Well, instead, what you should be really thinking about it. If the actual box was heavy, I would instead do it like this: 2 chairs. Actual heavy stuff. If I manage to connect it properly, like this. Yeah, actual heavy stuff, an actual reference, and this time instead of thinking about I'm gonna lift this big heavy box. Why are you even lifting this heavy box in the first place? Are you basically getting fired from your job? For example, oh my god, what? Oh my god, what am I gonna do? Talk to my wife, my children. I need to I kind of I'm over exaggerating it, but you see already, I struggle to lift. Fuck, that's so heavy. I already start to struggle with this, but you already see me having the weight being shifted backward. All right, for example, wait. Well, I'm also gonna, for example, I'm lifting this big box to help my wife move out of the house. Hey, honey, you okay? Yeah, sure, no worries. I'm okay. I can just move around, help you out with the stuff, etc. Oh, fuck. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really acting here. I really just can't lift this heavy stuff. Yeah. And the camera is still running, so record this thing, because it's okay, really accurate stuff, really natural method acting, And even in an example, for example, like, imagine, method acting, yeah. Imagine this bottle of water being like a sandwich from TF2, and I'm the heavy, and I'm like, Scout steals anonymous, I'll manage. Anonymous horse. Can you steal the bottle from me? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, like, imagine basically just like a scout stealing the sandwich from me, and yuck, zoink, major league, or whatever. And I'm like, when you record an acting reference, you shouldn't be like, I'm the heavy, someone stole my sandwich, etc. I'm angry. Instead, you should be, what is the emotion here? You're angry that someone stole your sandwich. So instead, what I would do in this case, instead being of like, someone stole my sandwich, I'm angry, I'll be like, fuck this driver at the intersection over there. Yeah, I promise I wouldn't swear, but that really makes like a fixed natural. And if anything, you could very well just like say it in a foreign language, like for example, oh putain, tu connais! Well, yeah, when basically you're crossing the road and you have a car like basically cutting you at the intersection. Yeah, basically raw emotion, natural, basically something that you have experienced in your own life and readjust it and reuse it in the context of recording an acting reference. Because by this point, you probably noticed that by reflex, like never in a million, I don't care if you're called a milk cow, you will never imagine this kind of like a out of the loop like a reflex. It's even better when you do it with a binom. Like for example, you can someone hit me on that, like this for example, and have like a natural reaction, which you can already see from this reaction when you put it in slow motion, which is really great when you see, for example, like those kind of like failed compilations of people walking into like a glass door in a bank, and like, it hurts, yeah, for example. But you start to already notice that they would, for example, not lead the action with the head, like the head won't start to move first because they're faking it. It will be really a core reaction in the body, so like, some kind of like this small stasis paralysis that would shake up through transverse, like through the entire like nervous system. It's also very important, like keep in mind, nervous system, like a connection, like small pinching, and you react to it by reflex. And yeah, basically natural, be natural, like raw emotion for the reference, and you will by reflex just anticipate, like do something that you would never imagine, and essentially have, and yet it will be so real, so natural that yes, of course you're gonna use it as a reference. Even, and this is funny with Ivy from Deadlock, because like suspenders are very difficult to animate, regardless if it's 2D, because you need to draw each lines in the 70 drawings from rough, tie down, and clean up. Like the 6-second animation took me pretty much like 1 month, and it was mainly like a suspender, the hair, the whatever. Like, but it feels so natural. That was the reference, acting reference I had. So yeah, she would also like readjust the suspenders like this, like be nervous, etc. So or casual. And even in 3D, it's complicated when you need to rig it, because like, yeah, I still need to like fix the weight paints. But essentially, by reflex, doing something natural, even if it's complicated to animate, no, that's not the approach. You should animate it regardless, because it is natural. It's raw. It's like, there's potential in it. Yeah? Oh, there. Thank you. Which good thing. I was actually like finishing. So be natural, be 12 principles as sliders, and also keep everything connected. You see my arm, right arm move. You see how the left one reacts. Kinetic energy, and same for the feet. You don't see it actually, but like this. I was almost on, no worries. Like those who, yeah, backwards, like this. Like this. I move my arm, you see the leg moving. I don't force it, like I'm really just like natural, like muscle relaxed and muscle clenched. Like I try to not move it, and yet it moves. Because I see a lot of people are just moving like just one arm but nothing else, even if you don't see it on screen. Oh yeah, and if you plan to make it a career, invest in like ergonomic peripherals. Carpal tunnel syndrome, especially with tricky clients, no joke. Whew. Okay, that's I think that's mainly all in this case. Any questions? Yes?
Or what kind of ergonomic tools would you give it an example?
That you ask. There are multiple of those. Like for example, the first step would be just having a vertical mouse, the ones that basically allow your. I never remember the name of those two bones you have in the forearm. That basically, if you have the position of the handle like this, you have those two bones crossed, which compresses your veins and the nervous system, which basically, with some time, basically creates a lot of strain and would basically would cause, I think it's called tendinitis, the syndrome where basically your tendons hurt. So whenever you try to move the arm, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. So you should be going for this position, ideally, when working on a computer. This is the natural pose. And also, so that's for the mouse. You need, of course, a good chair. This one is no, too low. It needs to basically keep your arm at like a 90-degree angle like this, and keep your shoulders relaxed, because otherwise, yeah, you're gonna feel the tension over there at some point, which is also very discomfortable. This is just for the arm, so like the mouse, the chair. There's also like the resting glasses when working in front of a computer for yeah, pretty much 8 hours a day, plus probably 4 additional ones for a personal stuff. So yeah, you need some resting glasses. Keeping your screen on night mode for the most part, because you won't be, you don't care about the colors anyway when working animation. This is the job of the compositor, texture mapper, and color grading. So definitely the resting glasses. There are definitely some others, I think, but so far the what?
3D mouse.
What is it again?
Would that be a good mouse? 3D mouse or
With buttons on the side.
I see. As long as you keep your arm like this, it should be fine. Hell, even the one supervisor was even using a tablet to work on mine. So anything goes as long as you can have this kind of a position with the angle on the forearm and the back arm being 90 degrees and keeping your shoulder relaxed. So if the 3D mouse does that, then yeah, sure, why not? Worth trying at the very least. And if you notice that it kind of starts to hurt you, then you probably need to change it because it might not be the best. But don't quote me on the 3D mouse. I'm not sure about this ones. I know with the at least vertical ones, it's fine.
Yeah, they're more common in 3D modeling. Mouse, at least.
Fair enough. I'm not. Fair enough. Fair enough because fair enough because I'm not a modeler. So I'm an animator. So.
Is there one final question?
Already? Wow. Okay, that's time flies so much fast. But yeah, I guess my animator friend finished the. Poster. So you can probably see what we had to deal with when working in Garry's Mod. And this is the more rudimentary stuff. Of course we get plugins to get a little bit better, more efficient. Although you don't really need much. If you have a good workflow as a basis, it's going to be fine because essentially it's like a stop function at the end of the day. All right. Because there's no time and I ended up being a surprisingly huge chit chat. I mean, if there are any questions after the panel, if you're interested, we probably circle around. So, thank you for your big shout out to my animator's friend Horse, who's been doing the poster with all the main six. The OG model, by the way. Yeah. Woo! Horse!